On December 12, 2007, Ike Turner died. Tina Turner's official response was 2 sentences long. She never said another word about it publicly. But what she said privately, to the people closest to her, tells a story that 2 sentences could never contain. The statement was released through her spokesperson on December 13, 2007. It read, "Tina hasn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment will be made." That was all. No grief, no anger, no relief expressed publicly, no memory offered. No acknowledgement of what he had been to her, or what she had been to him, or what 30 years of silence between 2 people who had once shared a stage and a bed and a name actually felt like from the inside. 2 sentences, and then nothing. The music press spent several days waiting for more. They did not get it. To understand why those 2 sentences were the complete and total response, you have to understand what the 31 years between July 1976 and December 2007 had actually contained. In July 1976, Tina Turner had walked out of a limousine in Dallas with 36 cents and a mobile credit card and had not looked back. She had filed for divorce. She had given up the recordings and the royalties and the rights and the money. She had kept only the name. And in the 31 years that followed, she had not spoken to him. Not once. Not a phone call. Not a letter. Not a message passed through a mutual contact. The separation was total, and it was deliberate, and it was the single most disciplined act of self-preservation she ever performed, because she understood something that took most people years to learn, if they learned it at all. That some distances are not cruelty. Some distances are survival. Some silences are not the absence of something. They are the presence of something. A boundary drawn and held. A life protected by its own perimeter. While Tina Turner was building her life in that silence, Ike Turner was dismantling his. The cocaine addiction that had driven the violence of the 1970s did not leave him when she did. It followed him through the 1980s, growing in proportion and consequence until it consumed everything it touched. In the early 1980s, he was arrested for cocaine possession and weapons charges. He was convicted. He served 18 months in prison. He was released in 1991, the same year he and Tina were inducted into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He could not attend the ceremony. He was still serving his sentence. In the years after his release, he attempted to rebuild. He returned to his blues roots. He recorded new music. He won a Grammy Award in 2007 for his album Risin' with the Blues. He gave interviews. He talked about Tina. He always talked about Tina. He said in interviews that he still loved her. He said the film about their life together, the 1993 biopic, What's Love Got to Do with It, had destroyed his reputation and broken his heart. He said it had assassinated his career. He admitted in his own autobiography that he had hit her. But he did not describe it the way she described it. He described it the way people describe things they have not yet fully reckoned with, as something that happened, not as something he did. In 2007, in the final months of his life, he told a reporter at Jet magazine that he had written Tina an apology for everything. He said he had written down what he needed to say about putting her and the kids through that kind of stuff. He said he had written it all out. He never sent it. The letter sat wherever he kept it. He died on December 12, 2007, from a cocaine overdose at his home in San Marcos, California. He was 76 years old. The letter went with him. Tina Turner was in Zurich when she heard. She was living the life she had built in the years since she had last seen him. The house near Lake Zurich. Erwin Bach, the German music executive she had fallen in love with at first sight at Düsseldorf Airport in 1986. The man who was 16 years her junior and had been beside her ever since. The Buddhist practice she had maintained for decades. The practice that had given her the specific tools she needed to process what had happened to her without being destroyed by it. The peace she had constructed, year by year, with the same discipline and the same refusal to accept less than what she deserved, that had gotten her out of that limousine in the first place. The people around her described her reaction to the news as quiet. Not cold, not devastated. Quiet. The specific quiet of someone who has already done the internal work that the moment demands, and arrives at the news to find that the work held. She did not weep publicly. She did not make calls to journalists. She did not prepare a statement of any length or complexity. She did not go to the funeral. Her sister Aline went. Aline had maintained her relationship with Ike across the decades, had never fully severed the connection the way Tina had. For Aline, he was still family. For Tina, he had ceased to exist as a presence in her life 31 years earlier, on the day she walked out of that limousine with 36 cents and a decision she never reversed. The funeral was held on December 21, 2007, at the City of Refuge Church in Gardena, California. Little Richard attended. Phil Spector attended. Several of Ike's former musicians and bandmates attended. His sons were there. The service lasted 3 hours. The Kings of Rhythm played Rocket 88 and Proud Mary. Phil Spector stood at the podium and used his eulogy to attack Tina Turner. He called the 1993 film about her life a piece of trash. He credited Ike for everything she had become. He said that when he went to see Ike perform in the 1990s, any one of the women on stage could have been Tina Turner. The room was uncomfortable. Nobody responded publicly. Tina Turner was not in the room. She was in Zurich. She did not respond to Spector's eulogy. She did not respond to anything. She had given the 2 sentences, and she had meant them as a complete statement, not as an opening position in a conversation she had no intention of having. Tina hadn't had any contact with Ike in more than 30 years. No further comment would be made. What she understood, and what the people who wanted more from her did not, was that the 2 sentences were not a refusal to engage. They were the engagement. They were the most precise and honest thing she could say about 31 years of deliberate separation from a man who had shaped her and broken her in proportions that could not be cleanly separated. She was not going to pretend to grieve someone she had spent 3 decades learning to live without. She was not going to perform forgiveness she had not yet reached. She was not going to give the public a version of her private reckoning with a death that was, in its way, the closing of something that had been closed for a very long time already. 2 sentences. That was the truth. In 2018, she wrote in her memoir, My Love Story, about what Ike had cost her. She described what he had done in terms that were precise and unsparing. He had thrown hot coffee in her face, giving her 3rd-degree burns. He had used her nose as a punching bag so many times
that she could taste blood running down her throat when she sang.
He had broken her jaw. She wrote that she could not remember what it was like not to have a black eye. She had never protected him in print. She had never softened the account for the sake of his memory. She had told the truth about him while he was alive, and she told it after he was dead, and the consistency of that truth-telling was its own form of statement. She had also told the other truth, the truth that was harder and more complicated and less satisfying to the people who wanted simple categories. She said she did not hate him. She said she had broken the cycle of negativity in her life, not through blame, but through forgiveness and self-reflection. She said the most important thing was not what happens to us, but how we choose to respond. She said she had released the negative feelings, not for his sake, for her own. In 2019, a reporter from the New York Times asked her directly about forgiveness. She paused before she answered. Then she said, "I don't know if I could ever forgive all that Ike ever did to me. But Ike's dead, so we don't have to worry about him." Those two sentences, different from the two sentences of 2007, but carrying the same quality of precision, told the complete story of where she had arrived. Not forgiveness, not hatred, not grief and not relief, and not the complicated middle ground that people expected her to inhabit publicly. Something more honest than any of those. A woman who had done what needed to be done to survive and rebuild and live, and who had arrived at a place where the death of the man who had tried to destroy her was simply a fact that did not require her comment, a fact that did not require her presence at a funeral, a fact that did not require her to perform any emotion she did not genuinely feel. What she felt, she kept. She had always kept what was most true. The 36 cents in a Dallas hotel lobby was true. The 16 years of what preceded it were true. The 31 years of silence that followed were true. The 2 sentences were true. The pause before answering the New York Times reporter in 2019 was true. And the life she had built in the space created by all of that truth, the house in Zurich, Erwin Bach, the Grammy Awards, the stadiums, the 1 million people in 2008 and 2009, the peace beside the lake, was the truest thing of all. Ike Turner died on December 12, 2007. Tina Turner issued a 2-sentence statement. She never said another word about it publicly. And in that silence, in the discipline and the precision and the complete refusal to give the world more than the truth required, was everything you need to know about who she had become in the 31 years since she walked away from him. She had become someone whose silence was more powerful than anyone else's words. She had become someone who could stand inside the death of the man who had tried to define her and simply say, "No further comment will be made," and mean it, and go home to the lake and live.